Okay, let me make sure, yep, I'm on. I want to call the meeting of the Regional Transportation Commission to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Chair Bagwell,
Present?
Vice Chair Schutte, Commissioner Dodson, Commissioner McQuarrie, Commissioner Stedfield. A quorum's present.
Thank you. We're going to move to agenda item number 3, which is our public comment section. I'll start off with welcoming Mr. Dotson to the team. We look forward to all the great things we're going to do together and, get to work right away. So thank you so very much, though. We look forward to this. And then just to let the public know, we will be pulling item 5B that is listed on the agenda. That will be pushed to a future meeting. It needs a little bit more development, so we'll be pulling that one in case you're listening or here in the audience to discuss that item. It's being pulled. Is there any public comment? No? Okay. Then we're going to move on to agenda item 4, which is approval of our minutes of April 14th. Do I have any corrections or a motion? Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion by Chaz McQuarrie and a second by Lisa Schutte for the approval of April 14th, 2021 minutes. All those in favor, say aye and push the yes.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. I see one abstention. If you'll call, and one abstention by the new member, Dotson. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move then to agenda item 5A, which is discussion and possible action on our grants. And I believe Alex is teed up and ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Alex Cruz, Transit Coordinator. The Federal Transit Administration 5339 Grant Funding Program provides funds to rehabilitate or purchase buses and bus-related facilities. CAMPO currently has grant funding available for fiscal years 2020 and 2021. Staff has proposed, through the following application, a project to provide solar lighting for jump-around Carson stops. An example of the type of lighting proposed is provided on packet page number 29. The proposed project would require $244,817 in funds from the FTA, $61,204 in local match for a total project cost of $306,021. Jack currently has 131 independent bus stops on poles and 26 freestanding bus shelters, including 2 shelters at the downtown transit center. Currently, no bus stop poles have their own independent lighting, and no bus shelters have working lighting. The solar lighting project would increase visibility for both drivers and riders at Jack stops, and also increase safety at all stops, which has been identified as an issue by Jack's Safety Solutions team. The planned lighting improvements would be consistent with Jack's Transit Development and Coordinated Human Services Plan. Staff recommend the submittal of the grant application to CAMPO with $244,817 in FTA funds and $61,204 in local match. With that, I'm available to take any questions.
Does any member have a question? I don't see any hands raised, but just as a clarification or a validation on the record, this will work for every bus stop.
Yes, correct.
So everything is handled. We're not leaving anything out.
Correct.
Okay. With that, I'm happy to accept a motion. Ms. Schutte?
I move to approve the application as presented and to authorize the RTC chair to sign the authorizing resolution section of this application.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the application as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and vote. Any noes, vote no. It was unanimous, yes. Thank you very much. As indicated, we have pulled 5B.
Who seconded?
Mr.
Okay.
Greg, sorry, should have called that out for you. We're going to move to item 5C, which is possible action regarding the cooperative agreement between DOT on the Colorado Street project. Ms. Schutte, a disclosure, please.
Thank you. NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose a conflict of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. My nephew is Chris Martinovich, who is employed by Carson City and will be presenting this item. Chris and I are not receiving compensation of any kind directly related to this item or project and are not affected by this item differently from any other resident in Carson City. While I make this disclosure, NRS 281A.420 requires abstention only in clear cases, and I do not believe that the independence of my judgment is materially affected by my familial relationship. Therefore, I do not have a qualifying conflict and will be voting on this matter.
Thank you. Please let the record reflect that disclosure applies to items 5C, 5D, and 5E. Thank you. Mr. Martinovich, will you take us through 5C, please?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. This item is and Chris Martinovich, Transportation Traffic Engineer. This item is to award a local public agency agreement for the Colorado Street project between Carson City and the Nevada Department of Transportation in the amount of $307,000 with a 5% local match requirement of $39,015. This local match will come from the V&T infrastructure account, and which has been obligated toward the project. We've talked about this project a number of times in the past, and we'll actually have another item next month where we'll bring some additional and some initial design concepts to this board for additional input. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and that's all I have.
Does anyone have any questions, Mr. Martinovich? Seeing no questions, I'll accept a motion.
I'll go ahead and do that. I move to authorize the transportation manager to execute the agreement as presented and to execute future amendments to the agreement regarding extensions of time or changes in funding amounts not exceeding 10% of the present amount.
Do I have a second? Okay, sorry, let me get caught up. I have a motion by Commissioner Stedfield and a second by Commissioner McQuarrie. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I vote yes. Any opposed? The motion carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to item 5D. This is discussion and possible action regarding a determination on Intermountain Slurry Seal as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder on the Long Line project. Mr. Martinovich.
Thank you. Again, Chris Martinovich. This item is to award a contract to Intermountain Slurry Seal, as was mentioned, in the amount of $210,310.10. The Long Line program, as many of you are aware, is our longitudinal striping. These are the stripes that divide on our collectors and arterials that divide travel lanes and divide bike lanes and the directions of travel. So this contract is to award Intermountain that contract to restripe those across a good portion of our city. Pretty straightforward. We do this commonly every year, but I'm happy to answer any other questions. And Rick Cooley is here as well if we have any questions specific to the details.
Does anyone have any questions? I just cannot help myself, Mr. Cooley. We just can't let you come and not have a single question. So generally, what my question is this something that we must bid by rule? Could we do it ourselves? Just talk to me a little bit about why we contract for Long Line.
Rick Cooley, Operations Manager for Public Works. No, it's not something we can do internally. We're just not equipped for it. So you bring a contractor in, they come with trucks, with truck-mounted paint sprayers, and actually full crews. They can actually bring in, depending on what they're doing, 2-3 crews, and they typically do this at night. But with our staff, we don't have a truck. We've got a little hand cart kettle that we can do parking lot striping and some miscellaneous touch-up if we need to, but it would be a substantial investment for us to buy the equipment and then also obtain the staff to operate that equipment throughout the year.
And then can you give me, so what projects do you see coming up that they're going to be working on? Do you have specific long
Who's?
routes that they're going to be taking this year?
Oh, it's all our collector, well, actually, it's every route in town that we do our long lines. So even our city streets that you see that have center line striping and some of those like For instance, Walker Drive has a center line stripe around one of the curves to slow people down and keep everybody separated. We do all that. So it's don't want to get confused with a short line striping,
Right.
which is in your wide striping, which is 6 inches or wider, crosswalks, things, delineation like that, markings, that's separate. This is all pretty much your double yellow, your skip white, your solid white fog line, but it's everything throughout. We cover the entire town with this long line project.
And how often do we do these? Every year?
Every year,
Every
every
year.
year. Yeah, some people think we do every other year. It's only because a couple of years ago, we had a mishap to where we tried to sneak some long line in, couldn't get it done with the pricing we had, and then by the time we got it out, we ran into weather issues, and we ended up skipping a year. But what ended up happening was, we looked at it and said, we can do, everything looks good, we can skip a year, but actually, we figured out that now it was a bad move. It scrubbed most of it completely off, so we won't do that again.
Okay, perfect. Does anyone?
I have a question or something I had noticed earlier, and I called and discussed it with Chris, just on the traffic control, the huge discrepancy in the cost. And it was explained that that the different, that the slurry seal, that their expertise is actually the slurry and not as much as the traffic control, and vice versa. The Nevada barricade, it's more of traffic control and sign. Is that, just looking at it, I was
You're talking about the discrepancy between bidders on that item?
correct,
Okay.
yes.
Line 15 in the traffic control, 51,000 versus 24 from the other
It's-
vendor.
It,
Yeah.
it's a tough one, because even last year, well, with the short line project that we did last year, we had the same issue to where the lowest bidder was extremely lower than everybody else. Like, I want to say everybody was around $40,000 to $50,000 range, and the low bidder ended up down around 20 to 25,000. So there was a huge discrepancy. That line item is for lack of a better term, a crapshoot. It's, as a contractor, you don't know what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, when you're going to do it, going into it. And contractor A might look at it and say, hey, I can bring in two crews, maybe 3 crews, and do traffic control in a large area. With the long line, a lot of it's mobile traffic control. Some companies have different safety requirements, so they have more or less personnel. It's really, and to where we go throughout town, it's not something you can really put your finger on. And that's why we bid it out as a lump sum item, because it's nothing that anybody can really, if we forced somebody to say, okay, and we do on our specs, we say you must have these things at a minimum. You must have a shadow truck, you must have, we document some of those. Some go above that, some go right at that line. It just depends on what your company's policies and things are. And it's really tough if we get into business of saying you shall do this to the letter, it's going to drive our prices up. It's going to eliminate the ability of a contractor to do things more efficiently.
Sure.
So we leave that up to them, and we get some of these large gaps. Now, I would be lying to you if I told you that there's games played in that line item. If you're really starving for a job, you're going to, because it's really your traffic control is labor for the most part. There is some equipment involved, but labor's a bulk of it. You can play games with that in order to drive your costs down. I'm taking less of a profit on my labor, or there's just a whole bunch of, in the contracting world, there's just a lot of games you can play with that. So that's why you see those discrepancies. And also, on the other side, you can play the game, if I've got a bunch of work and I've got more work than I can handle right now,
You can bid high.
that's an item to fluff your number up to cover, how am I going to cover this? And if I'm the only bidder, hey, great, I just, got some extra profit. It's just in the contracting world, it's one of those situations, and that's an item to kind of hedge things.
All right. Well, I appreciate it.
So
and
it's not a great answer, but that's,
Well, but I think it's important, and thank you, just because it jumped out at me. And so I just think it's important to.
it's one of those
discuss.
things we always, it always jumps out at you. And then you gotta, we as staff gotta look at it and say, okay, is it enough of a game to where we just don't award the project? I mean, if everybody comes in and they're all stacking the deck high, you know, it might be behoove us not to do something or to do something a little differently. But typically, it balances out. You got one low, one high, somebody in the middle somewhere is typically where that line item works out.
Thank you.
If I can add to that, it also depends on how the contractor loads the contract. And that's something that's just totally internal to them, because when you have two bids that are within, what, $3,000 of each other, you know, yeah, you're gonna see that big cost in the traffic control, well, but it came out from somewhere else. So it really depends on how they do the financials on the project internally.
Okay.
But he's right, traffic control is very subjective. It's not like, you know, 1,000 square feet of pavement is 1,000 square feet of pavement. There's no arguing that. You know, and you know, me as an engineer, I don't ever get involved in the traffic control because that's something that the contractor does and they're good at it. So I never really questioned the actual traffic control personally.
Okay. And yeah, thank you. And yes.
Mr. Dotson?
Mr. Coley, as the new guy on the board, I apologize for an education question here on my part. But I was just wondering, as Greg indicated, the bids are extremely tight. And I also noticed that they're very close to the engineer's estimate. My question is the contractor aware of the engineer's estimate at the time of the bid?
Yes, typically it's on the front of the bid package that goes out. However, this is something we do every year, and typically it's Intermountain or Nevada Barricade that gets it. Typically, I'd say over the last 10, 15 years, typically it's been Intermountain that's got the contract. So they've done it. They know what's involved. They got it pretty dialed in. One of the things that we had going with us while we postponed this bid this year was the RTC was bidding a large traffic control project, I think in the tune of $6 million. So we postponed our bid knowing that whoever got that bid was going to be hungry to come after ours to drive our prices down. So we expected to be whoever put in for our project to be competitive with each other, because now they're looking to pick up the scraps to fill their schedule.
Thank you.
Is there any further questions? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
I move to find Intermountain the lowest responsive and responsible bidder and to award contract number 203-00316 as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
That's it. I have a motion by Ms. Schutte and a second by Mr. Dotson. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. One more vote, Mr. Dotson. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Go on to item 5D, discussion and possible action regarding a contract with Nichols Consulting Engineers for our District 3 Center Drive Rehab Project. Mr. Martinovich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Martinovich. Record, this is an item to award a civil design engineering services contract to NCE toward our District 3 Center Drive Reconstruction Rehabilitation Project, as mentioned. NCE will be performing all civil engineering design services, which include roadway design, survey, right-of-way research, hydraulic analysis. They'll also be performing a high-level pavement assessment and completing design of the planned sewer installation that is going to go between Snyder Avenue and Clear Creek Road. They'll also provide some high-level assistance during bidding and construction services through the life of the project. We anticipate the design of this project to be completed by the end of this year, December of 2021, bid out early in 2022, and constructed in the spring and summer of 2022. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does any member have a question? Mr. Stedfield?
So, Chris, if you can answer me this question. So, NCE is on a pre-approved list of consultants for the city.
Yes.
So, were any other consultants approached to put in a bid on this project, or was it just sole source to NCE?
We did not request any scopes from any other consultants on this project.
Okay. The only reason I ask is it just seems like the cost is high.
Well, okay.
It just appears that way. I don't know if you want to,
We did do some negotiation with NCE through the coordination and adjusting some scope. We've used some internal processes to kind of back check some of the numbers. I know one of my personal rules of thumb is 40 man hours a sheet. And so when you kind of do some of that analysis, you end up with a very similar number to what NCE has proposed for their design services. Other components we looked at were the hydraulic analysis. Some initial discussion on that was a little bit high, and so we refined some of that scope to get that down a little bit. From the design standpoint, I think there's some challenges with the sewer design potentially. There's some unknowns with that, with some underground, so that could be a little bit more complicated from a design standpoint. But overall, I think the number is kind of a trial here for us. We haven't done a lot of consultant design contracts here in Carson City, specifically to this type of work. And so we're kind of looking to put some feelers out to see what are potential costs, what are consultants looking for when they're contracting with us. So we're kind of using this as a kind of a trial, if you will.
okay. All right.
So I'm sorry I didn't get to the question earlier with you, but I noticed that this project has some sanitary sewer design. When we get to the actual project, will the sewer fund be paying a portion? Because I notice this is all coming out of RTC. Nothing is apportioned to the sanitary.
Yes, the construction of the sanitary sewer, as well as a portion of the construction management of the sanitary sewer, will be coming from that fund.
And so why not some of the design fee?
We could certainly do that. We haven't specifically programmed that just because of the little amount. It was just easier to have it come out of the one account, but we could do that.
I just know I'm just being honest. I'm looking for every dollar in my
Sure.
RTC fund that I can. And so we apportion others. And so.
Sorry to interrupt, another possible option is there is a material testing contract needed at some point. We could find maybe a balance where that one pays more out of the sewer fund because there's compaction testing, there's some other testing that's associated with installation of sewer lines that maybe could balance off the
So
additional.
I don't have a
portion.
problem approving the contract tonight, and then what you can do is really true up the allocation of the costs across the project as you do it. I'm fine
Okay.
with that staff can look at the right mix of how much to charge to which account.
Okay.
So, thank
Certainly,
you.
thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, then I'll accept a motion.
I move to approve contract 203-00348 as presented.
I have a motion by Mr. McQuarrie and a second by the motion hand of Mr. Dotson. Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 5F, which is discussion on a cooperative agreement between Carson City and DOT on the Safe Routes to School program. Miss Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Chair.
I'm like, what?
Finally get an opportunity to speak this evening. The Western Nevada Safe Routes to School program started in 2017. For those that were here at the time, the program started in the Carson City Health Department as a way to get our school-age children healthy and out and active. Over time, the program evolved and was shifted over to Public Works. We look at planning, education, engineering opportunities for safe and friendly pedestrian and bicycle access to schools. We serve school-aged children from kindergarten through 8th grade in Carson City, Douglas, Lyon, and Story counties. If approved, this agreement would extend our program through September 30th, 2023. This funding is fairly unique for the Transportation Division, at least, in that we are allowed to provide our local match as in-kind match. So we use our existing administrative staff, myself and our fiscal analyst, the time that we spend administering the program, seeking reimbursement, grant management, that type of thing, and that covers our in-kind match. So if approved this evening, the grant funding here, $595,266.10, It has already been added to the final fiscal year 2022 budget. If approved, it will stay in there. If not approved, we would remove it, of course. And that would be for consideration of approval by the Board of Supervisors on May 20th, 2021. The 5% local match, since it is in kind, is not required to be budgeted. So with that, I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Do I have any questions for Ms. Maloney? Ms. Schutte?
Hi, I have a comment, actually. I just think this is a wonderful grant, and I love the idea of safe route to school. And as I was reading through this and keeping in mind the conversations when we were talking about the school zones a while ago, and there was one particular caller who she drives her child to school and was concerned about not enough places to park to let your child out. And I was thinking of this as I was reading this report, and I would really love to encourage our community and communities really in general and parents when driving your kiddos to school, maybe park a few blocks away and walk with junior or juniorette to school. It lessens the impact around the school area. It reduces traffic. It increases safety. It also allows, for kids to meet other kids who they might not normally meet because maybe everybody walks that block or two together around the same time of day. I would really love to encourage this to reduce congestion, to increase safety, and to really kind of embrace community and neighborhood. So thank you so much for bringing this to our attention, and I support it.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. McQuarrie?
Yeah, I echo that sentiment. In fact, I would go a little further. And one of the goals of the program is to have kids walk or ride from home to school. Never mind, get in the car and then get out of it again. Lucia, on the first page of the staff report, it says that there's been a decline in children walking and bicycling to schools. Is that locally or nationally or both?
No, that's a great question. And you probably know the answer to this already, but it is nationally, right? As predominance of, single occupancy vehicles continue to increase since, the 70s, we saw, walking and biking to school decrease. As we focus on safe routes to school and that safe infrastructure, it not only benefits the students, but as Ms. Schutte said, it benefits the neighborhoods and the residents that live there as well. So we're hoping to kind of reverse that trend, at least here in Carson, and continue to improve.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm a strong proponent of this program. I think it's really, really valuable. And for a number of years, and I was sort of in the loop because Muscle Powered actually got the first grant to do a Safe Routes to School program many years ago now. And we used to have a number of bike rodeo sort of days where we taught skills, and that was done through the Office of Traffic Safety at the state level, and then we had volunteers who would help with that. And I only saw bike rodeos mentioned once in the application. So is that something we intend to do? And the skills would involve not just the physical skill of riding the bike, but also what to do on the street, so safely.
Again, great question. Things have certainly evolved with our program over the last few years, but most recently, with the pandemic, as we submitted this application, we have shifted the program to what we're calling an achievement program. This is a format that's new to us up here in the north, but it's been highly successful down in southern Nevada, where it's really an opt-in program where the Safe Routes to School provides sort of a menu approach of services and support that we can provide, and schools can opt in and then be a partner with us to help engage the community in different ways. Bike rodeo is one component of this that, as there's things opening up after the pandemic and schools are more willing and eager to have folks on campus, and especially non-school employees on campus, that's one thing that we're looking to start again, and in conjunction with all the other program elements.
Yeah, I would definitely encourage that because, part of people's reluctance, both parents and kids, to actually get on a bicycle or even walk for that matter, is not feeling comfortable doing it. And certainly there's some schools where, boy, I wouldn't want to ride to school, never mind a kid. But other schools, and depending on where you live, there's routes that are pretty reasonable from a safety perspective, but the more comfortable kids and their parents feel about the whole thing, the more likely they are to do that. So I would encourage us to weave that back into the program if we can.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any
That's
other
it.
questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
I'll do it. I move to approve the agreement and to authorize the transportation manager to sign the agreement as well as future amendments to the agreement that extend the time for performance or approve funding changes not exceeding 10% of the present agreement amount.
Is there a second?
I second.
I have a motion by Mr. Stedfield and a second by Ms. Shute. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you all. We're going to move on to agenda item 6, which is our non-action items. Do we have a report from the transportation manager? Ms. Maloney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few items. For those that aren't on the Board of Supervisors, next week is National Public Works Week. The Board of Supervisors made a proclamation at their meeting last Thursday to that effect. Those who were in Public Works were pretty excited about it and celebrating alongside our state chapter events. Also, May is Bike Month as it relates to the last agenda item. I wanted to let you know that Bike to Work Day is next Friday, the 21st. So get out there and bike to work. I know those of us on the transportation team are going to try to do that. And then additionally, this Friday, the 14th, so 2 days from now, is Carson City's ever anticipated celebrity bike ride. So hope to see some of you out there on Friday as well. And then 6B is the street activity report for March. I won't go over it, but if you have any questions. And then Chris Martinovich has capital project updates within item 6C. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions on item 6B that they'd like clarification on? Okay, then we'll take item 6C, the capital projects update. Mr. Martinovich.
Thank you. Chris Martinovich. I'll just kind of run through our list of projects here. The first one is South Carson Street Complete Streets project. Getting very close on this one. There's just some final items left to finish up. They've been cutting in loop detectors for the traffic signals, and they've been doing some other fiber optic connections associated with the signal connections, finishing up some of the landscaping, and we'll be seeing some restriping, not only with the long line, but with some other striping occurring near the roundabout soon. The next project is the freeway multi-use path to Colorado Street, and feel free to stop me if anyone has any questions on anything. The next one's the freeway multi-use path to Colorado Street. Construction has been completed. There were some last minute or last items related to hydro seeding on some exposed slopes. I believe those have been taken care of. So they're working to get all that closed out. And so this will be the last time we see this particular project. The next project is another freeway multi-use path. This is the one from Colorado Street down to Edmonds. This project is in the design phase. We're looking to deliver 90% plans here in the next couple of weeks. NDOT's still completing some environmental clearances associated with this project, and construction is planned for next summer. So that's exciting as well.
And on this one, what is the flap grant amount? Did we change the flap grant amount on this one?
This is a TAP grant, Transportation
Okay.
Alternatives
I'm on
Program
the wrong
grant.
one. Next one. Okay.
The next one is our FLAP project. This is the Kings Canyon Trailhead Improvements and Roadway Reconstruction Project. This project is currently out for bid. Bids are due back on June 3rd, and construction is still anticipated to begin sometime in late June or early July. This was amended prior RTC meetings, and I believe the budget on this sheet has been corrected to reflect those amendments.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh my goodness. I never forget a number. It just like stands out to me. I'm like, that's not right. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Next project is the Roop Street Rehabilitation Project. This is a roadway reconstruction between 5th Street and Musser Street. I've recently been told that we're going to include some new sewer design in this as well, so that's not reflected on this current sheet, but that'll be amended on the next time. We are working to scope this project with a consultant for design similar to Center Drive, and so we're under negotiations with that right now, and I would anticipate bringing that to the RTC next month. The next project on the list is the Fairview Drive Rehabilitation Project. This project was primarily a water and a street rehabilitation project between South Carson Street and Roop Street. The project is being completed. All the last minute items, last finished up items are completed. We're working to pay out and get the last reimbursement from NDOT on this one. So this will be the last time this project is presented. The next one on the list is the Northridge Drive Pavement Reconstruction Project. This one's been on the list with very little motion for the last several months. It was awarded to A&K back in December. We are getting ready to start construction on June 1st. So look for that to start ramping up out there in a couple of weeks. The 2020 District 2 Long Street project. This project is out for bid as well. We expect bids back in a couple of weeks. This project includes the roadway reconstruction as well as sewer and storm drain and water. All utilities are included in this one between Roop Street and Solomon Road, along with some work in Rand in that area. This project will likely go to the Board of Supervisors for approval due to the constraints of wanting to get this under construction and completed before the end of the paving season, which tends to be the end of October. So I anticipate this one going to the Board of Supervisors rather than the RTC. The next project is Telegraph Street. This project, there was some last items related to some curb ramps that they were completing, but I believe they've finished up the painting and some of the other items they were working on. We're looking to close this one out, so I'll remove this one from the list. All that work, to my knowledge, has either been completed in the last couple of weeks or will be very soon. Robinson Area Sewer Project. This is a sewer replacement project, primarily in Caroline, Robinson, and Spear Streets. There's also some water work associated with this. Project is moving into the 100% design plans. This project will probably be bid sometime over the summer, and we'll kind of leave it up to the contractor to determine when the best construction season is based on their schedule. It could be delayed. Construction could be delayed until next spring or summer. Colorado Street, CDBG, that's the project we mentioned today that was awarded the LPA agreement with NDOT. This project is, survey's been completed. We're starting on the 30% design plans. We plan to bring an item at the next RTC next month in June to discuss some preliminary 30% design concepts for some of those features we talked about a couple of meetings ago regarding medians and curb extensions and things like that. Our District 3 Deer Run Road Pavement Preservation Project. This project is out to bid. This is just a Type 3 modified slurry seal between US 50 and Sedge Road, along with some miscellaneous signing and restriping of the roadway. Similarly, our Clear Creek Road, Old Clear Creek Road Pavement Preservation Project, a very similar scope, Type 3 modified slurry seal between Carson Street or US 395 and down to Vista Grande Boulevard, and includes that short section of Vista Grande Boulevard there. Since we're right there, might as well preserve that pavement. Again, it's out to bid. We anticipate awarding both of those at the next RTC meeting in June. Two more here, District 3 Center Drive Reconstruction Project. This project we talked about tonight for design consultant services. We're starting design this month, anticipated to be completed with design by the end of the year, as mentioned previously. Construction is planned for next summer. And lastly is our 2021 School Zone Project. This is a project we discussed at a prior meeting at the RTC here to place additional flashing beacons and make some additional sign refinements to various school zones here in Carson City. We're working on the design plans, and we plan to have 90% plans by about the end of May, and we'll complete those and get those to bid sometime this summer, probably a June or a July or August award for this one and to move forward. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on any project.
Okay, Mr. Stedfield?
I just wanted to point out, and this kind of dovetails into your concern on the traffic control, the Clear, which one was it? Yeah, the old Clear Creek Road pavement rehabilitation project. As you know, that's right in front of Costco. So you're going to probably see a real high traffic control line item on that one, right? So I just wanted to point that out.
Do you have any other questions?
Yes,
Oh.
please, Madam Chair. So the Center Drive project, we have a current project and a project option. Presumably, we're going to try and do the option all the way to the county line if we can.
Yes, the plan is to do the project all the way to the county line. There are some storm drain challenges that we need to work through with our design consultant to make sure we have an adequate solution and we're not going to put water where water shouldn't be going. So we have a solution, anticipate solution, but we're still sticking with our scope. Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay. Don't see any, so we'll move on to item 6D. Ms. Maloney, do we have a future agenda items or other things to report under 6D?
Nothing additional to report. Thank you, Ms. Chair.
Let me go through. Do I have anything from any members of the board to communicate? We're a chatty group tonight. So happy to see this. That's good. Okay, then we'll move on to final public comment. Do I have any final public comment for this evening? This might be almost a record. We might have had one done sooner, but in that case, then we are in adjournment. And thank you again, Mr. Dotson, for your service on the committee. We look
Thank
forward
you.
to working with you.